Imagine sitting on a public toilet in ancient Rome, chatting with your neighbor, while a stream of water carries waste away beneath you. It sounds modern, but it was built over The Romans built an incredible sewer system called the Cloaca Maxima, which started as an open canal and later became a massive underground tunnel. This sewer system drained public baths, latrines, and even rainwater from the streets, keeping the city clean and reducing disease. After the fall of Rome, this advanced sanitation was lost for centuries, and European cities became filthy and disease-ridden until the 19th century. It was a constant, smelly challenge. In ancient Rome, engineers built one of the world's first large-scale sewer systems, the Cloaca Maxima. Originally an open drainage canal, it was later covered over and expanded to carry waste and stormwater away from the city into the Tiber River. This massive stone channel, some sections still in use today, was a marvel of early public works. But the Cloaca Maxima was a privilege for the wealthy. Most Romans lived in crowded apartment blocks called insulae, which had no indoor plumbing. Residents would dump their chamber pots out the window into the street, shouting "Gardalu" as a warning. The streets became open sewers, and stepping in filth was a daily hazard. Public latrines existed, but medieval European cities were even worse. Castles had moats that doubled as cesspools, and town streets were narrow, muddy channels of garbage and human waste. Butchers threw animal remains into the gutters. The stench was overwhelming. People believed disease came from bad smells or miasma, so they tried to mask odors with herbs and perfumes. They didn't yet know that germs, not smells, caused illness. The breakthrough came in the 19th century, when a cholera outbreak in London led Dr. John Snow to map cases and trace the source to a contaminated water pump. This proved that waterborne diseases spread through sewage, not air. Cities began building modern sewer systems, separating waste from drinking water. The flush toilet, though invented earlier, became widespread. Public health improved dramatically, and the age of sanitation had begun. Of Mohenjo-Daro, archaeologists discovered an advanced drainage system. Every house had a private bathroom connected to covered brick sewers running along the streets. This was around 2600 BCE, over 4,000 years ago. The Indus people also built public wells and bathing platforms. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, a large brick pool sealed with natural tar, was likely used for ritual purification. Water management was central to their urban plan. Meanwhile, in ancient Egypt around 2500 BCE, workers building the pyramids lived in temporary camps. They had organized food rations and medical care, but sanitation was basic. Waste was collected in pits and periodically, but the most impressive ancient sanitation system belonged to the Romans. By 100 CE, Rome had 11 aqueducts supplying over 1 million gallons of water daily. Public latrines flushed with running water, and a vast sewer system called the Cloaca of Mohenjo-Daro. Archaeologists discovered a network of brick-lined drains running beneath the streets. Nearly every house had a private toilet, a brick seat over a chute that led to a covered drain. Waste flowed into soak pits that filtered solids while liquids seeped into the soil. This system was so advanced that similar designs would not be seen again until the Roman Empire, nearly 2,000 years later. But the Indus people didn't just build for hygiene, they built for comfort. In the citadel of Mohenjo-Daro, excavators uncovered the Great Bath, a large, brick-lined pool sealed with natural tar. Water was drawn from a well in an adjacent room, and the pool could be drained through The Great Bath was likely used for ritual purification, a practice that remains central to Hinduism today. It stands as the earliest known public water tank in the ancient world, or main drains which were regularly cleaned. This system was so advanced that it rivaled sanitation in 19th century London. Why did the Indus Valley invest so heavily in sanitation? The civilization valued cleanliness. Streets were laid out in a precise pattern, with houses built of standardized baked bricks. This uniformity suggests a strong central authority that enforced building codes. But who ruled the Indus Valley? Unlike other ancient civilizations, they left no grand palaces or royal tombs, no monuments glorifying a single king. The lack of royal propaganda is striking. There are no statues of kings, no depictions of battles. This has led some scholars to suggest that Indus society was more egalitarian, perhaps governed by a council of merchants or priests. but without deciphered writing, we can only guess. Their script, found on seals and pottery, remains under. Over 400 distinct symbols have been identified, but no bilingual Rosetta Stone has been found. Without it, the voices of the Indus people remain silent. Their cities, however, speak volumes. Around 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley civilization began to decline. The reasons are debated: climate change, shifting rivers, or overexploitation of resources. City planning included public wells and bathing platforms. The drainage system was integrated into the urban layout, showing a centralized approach to waste management. But not all ancient cities were so organized. In ancient Rome, sanitation was a mixed bag. The wealthy had indoor plumbing and latrines connected to sewers, but the poor lived in crowded insulae with no running water. Waste was often dumped from windows into the streets, and public latrines were shared spaces with little privacy. It was a mix of public works and private neglect. The Cloaca Maxima, or Great Sewer, was built in the 6th century BCE to drain marshes and carry waste to the Tiber River. Over time, it expanded in a vast network of underground channels, some large enough to walk through. But while the state maintained the main drains, individual homes were left to connect as they pleased. Wealthy households had private latrines connected to the system, while the poor relied on public latrines or chamber pots. Public latrines were social spaces. Rows of marble seats with no dividers allowed Romans to sit side by side, chatting while they conducted their business. A sponge on a stick, soaked in vinegar or salt water, served as shared toilet paper. The waste flowed into channels of running water. Yet for all its engineering, Roman sanitation was not based on germ theory. They had no concept of microscopic pathogens. The system reduced filth, but did not eliminate disease. Outbreaks still occurred, and the same Tiber that carried waste away also supplied drinking water down a massive underground network. Roman public latrines were social spaces, long marble benches with holes over running water. Citizens used a sponge on a stick, shared by all, rinsed in a bucket of salt. However, the system had a dark side. Lead pipes carried water throughout the city, and lead was used in cooking vessels and wine sweeteners. Some historians believe lead poisoning may have contributed to the decline of the Roman elite. In medieval Europe, sanitation took a step backward. People threw chamber pots out windows into the streets. The stench was overwhelming and disease spread easily. But some cities tried to improve. London built public latrines over the Thames, and Paris had the fosses, deep pits lined with stone. The breakthrough came in the 19th century. Dr. John Snow mapped a cholera outbreak in London to a single water pump on Broad Street. He removed the pump handle, and the epidemic stopped. This proved that cholera was waterborne, not airborne, and sparked a revolution in sanitation. Romans had no understanding of germs. The same water that flushed waste also supplied public fountains. Parasites and diseases were rampant. Studies of Roman feces reveal widespread intestinal worms. The impressive engineering did not guarantee. After the fall of Rome, many of these engineering marvels fell into disrepair. Aqueducts crumbled, baths were abandoned, and sanitation regressed. For centuries, European cities became filthy, disease-ridden places. The Black Death in the 14th century killed up to half of Europe's population. People had no idea that fleas on rats carried the plague. They blamed bad air, witches, or divine punishment. It wasn't until the 19th century that scientists like John Snow and Louis Pasteur connected disease to contaminated water and germs. This revolutionized public health and led to modern sanitation systems. After the fall of Rome, sanitation declined in Europe. Medieval cities were notoriously filthy. Chamber pots were emptied into the street with a cry of "Gardez-l'eau," from the French "Gare de l'eau," or "Beware of the water." Waste accumulated in open gutters, attracting rats but the real problem was water supply. Most people drew water from rivers that also served as sewers. In London, the Thames was both a source of drinking water and a dumping ground for human waste. This cycle of contamination led to repeated outbreaks of cholera and the turning point came in 1854 during a cholera outbreak in London's Soho district. Dr. John Snow mapped cases and traced the source to a single water pump on Broad Street. He convinced authorities to remove the pump handle, and the outbreak ended. This was the birth of modern epidemiology. Snow's work proved that contaminated water caused cholera, not bad air, as many believed. This led to major reforms in water and waste management. Cities began building separate sewer systems and treating drinking water. Sanitary engineering became a priority, saving millions of lives in the following decades. Accumulated in cesspits, which often overflowed into wells. The result was repeated outbreaks of plague, cholera, and dysentery. But other parts of the world fared better. In ancient China, the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, used toilets connected to a sophisticated sewer system made of brick and tile. Waste was carried away through underground pipes, reducing the spread of disease. This early sewer network served the imperial palaces and wealthy households, but not the common people. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, archaeologists have found evidence of the world's first known flush toilets. These were simple brick seats with a chute that led to a covered drain. Water was poured manually to flush waste away. It was a remarkably advanced system but the Indus Valley system was not just for the elite. Many homes had their own toilets, connected to a city-wide drainage network. The drains were covered with bricks and had inspection holes for cleaning. This was a public health achievement that would not be matched in Europe for thousands of years. So why did these early sanitation systems disappear? The decline of the Indus Valley civilization around 1900 BCE remains a mystery, but the knowledge was lost. In Europe, the fall of the Roman Empire led to a collapse of organized sanitation. For centuries, people returned to the streets of medieval European towns became open sewers. People emptied chamber pots from windows and waste mixed with mud and animal dung. The stench was overwhelming and disease was constant. It was a dark age for sanitation. But the desire for cleanliness never fully disappeared. Even in the Middle Ages, some monasteries had sophisticated water systems. And in the Islamic world, cities like Baghdad and Cordoba had public baths and latrines with running water. The knowledge of sanitation was preserved and improved upon, in the Maya cities of Central America, reservoirs and drainage channels managed rainwater and waste. The Islamic world developed sophisticated water supply and sanitation systems, including public baths, fountains, and underground sewers. In medieval Europe, chamber pots were emptied into streets, creating foul conditions. Some castles had guardrobes, simple toilets that dropped waste into moats or pits. The flush toilet, invented by Sir John Harington in 1596, was a precursor to modern sanitation, though it took centuries to become widespread. Public baths and latrines with running water, following hygiene practices rooted in religious law. So, what can we learn from ancient sanitation? First, infrastructure is a choice. The Indus Valley chose to invest in public health, medieval. European cities often neglected sanitation, leading to repeated plague outbreaks. Second, technology alone isn't enough. The Romans had advanced aqueducts, but their sanitation only worked for the wealthy. Third, cultural habits matter. In Japan, bathing is not just about cleanliness but also spiritual purification, which encouraged public bathhouses. Finally, we must consider sustainability. Ancient systems often relied on manual labor and simple materials. Today, we face similar challenges. How to provide sanitation for billions without overwhelming the planet. The past shows us that sanitation is not a luxury, it is the foundation of civilization. And those who ignore it do so at their own peril. Europe neglected it. While cities like London and Paris invested in massive sewer systems, many smaller towns and rural areas were left behind. Open drains and cesspools remained common well into the 20th century. Second, technology alone is not enough. Without understanding disease, even advanced systems can fail. Early sewers often discharged untreated waste directly into rivers, causing outbreaks downstream. Finally, sanitation reflects social values. Who has access to clean toilets? Who cleans the sewers? These questions remain relevant today. The history of sanitation is not just about pipes and pumps. It is a mirror of our priorities, our knowledge, and our compassion. And it is a story that is still being written. Next time you flush, remember, it took thousands of years of trial, error, and ingenuity to make that simple act possible. Ancient cities show us that sanitation is not just about pipes and drains. It's about civilization. It's the Indus Valley civilization, around 2500 BCE, built some of the world's first flush toilets. Brick-lined pits and covered drains carried waste away from homes, a system so advanced it wouldn't be matched for millennia. The Romans took sanitation to a new level with public latrines and a vast sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima. But after Rome fell, much of this knowledge was lost in Europe for centuries. It wasn't until the 19th century that the modern flush toilet was reinvented, driven by the need to combat disease in crowded cities. Today, billions still lack access to safe sanitation, a reminder that this ancient challenge is far from solved.